Hey, what's up everyone? Raging Golden Eagle here, having way too much fun as always. And a few years back, it was Dead or Alive Extreme 3 that skipped out entirely on a Western release and just did an English Asia release. And now, funny enough, the same thing is happening with, of all games, the Girls und Panzer game. Check out the link in the description box below for more info. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that thanks to the internet, and the fact that so many marketplaces that were completely inaccessible to us before are now wide open for discovery, and the important part being we can do this without any of those pesky middleman gatekeepers either, at this point, honestly, we really don't need to tolerate censorship anymore. If the middlemen we used to rely on in the past, in this case the Western publishers and localizers, insist on censoring, then let's just cut them out of the loop entirely. Again, thanks to the internet, we don't need to rely on middlemen anymore. In the past, when information was a whole lot harder to come by, we had to rely on these middlemen to even know what was coming out in other countries, let alone what we're going to be getting. But now, we can find out all this information ourselves. Which kind of leads me to this point, because I know some of you are there saying, well, back when you were a kid and you didn't know any of this was going on, you were somehow fine playing games, right? What's different now? That's honestly a pretty fair question, so let's answer it. Sure, back when I was ignorant, everything was fine. But now, thanks to the internet and the fact that the gatekeepers lost control over the flow of information, we can get around said gatekeepers entirely. And when we do that and see that something was censored and that the uncensored version is vastly superior and something that we would actually want, we start getting pissed at getting the inferior product for no reason other than to protect some non-gamers' precious fifis. These middlemen are stuck in the old school mindset of appealing to a wider audience, and thus their goal is to make sure everything is as inoffensive as possible and appeals to as wide of an audience as possible. And to be fair, in the specific case of Girls und Panzer, I don't think it's an issue of censorship. It's either licensing issues or more likely a lack of this wider audience that is keeping it from being brought over to the West in the first place. So in a way, maybe these Western companies are finally learning, because we have in the past seen them license even smaller niche titles and then proceed to censor everything about them that made them appealing in the first place. Seriously, what makes you think it's a good idea to bring over a game where the fan service is a huge selling point and then censor the fan service? I really wish some company out there would put in the money and do an experiment and just release a censored version and an uncensored version as separate products, and have them labeled as such, including on the box exactly what was altered, if anything, and then see which one actually sells. But something tells me they don't want to do it, not just because it would cost them more money and not really give them any return except for satiating our curiosity, but because they probably know the answer. But funny enough, what they fail to realize is that most of the Asian games they are censoring would never have really been a hit with the mainstream in the US anyway. And by censoring these games, they made sure the niche audience who would have loved to throw their money at said games now doesn't want them either. So they are basically pulling an SJW Marvel. They are losing all of their current loyal customers and fan base in an attempt to appeal to others that will never be their customers. It's the same situation I mentioned earlier in my video about P-Cube actually bringing over Omega Labyrinth Z. There literally is no wider audience for that sort of game in the first place. If you censor the one main selling point of the game in order to try to appeal to a wider audience, you will get no audience and just lose a bunch of money. So while some publishers are finally starting to learn this lesson, us as the consumers, we have to realize that we live in a post-internet international marketplace. Those of us who are interested in these sorts of games or other products, not just games, already actively seek them out at the source. We already bypass the middleman. We get our news either directly from Japan or through specialists that find it for us. I guess in that case it still counts as having a middleman, but as long as they link their sources and we can go look at them ourselves, that's okay. As far as I'm concerned, the normal Western industry, in this case both the publishers / localizers and the media especially, they are worthless to us. We can cut them out entirely, and there will not only be no loss to us, but we will benefit in the end. Not only will we end up getting no censorship, ideally anyway. If they do end up doing the Asia English releases and censoring them anyway, there's literally no point, and they're still going to end up losing money, so why would they do that? But with the exception of a few hate boner-popping alleged journalists writing for joke drama sites pretending to be gaming news sites, remember all those quote-unquote journalists that still went out of their way to import and tear apart Dead or Alive Extreme 3 even after it was announced it wasn't getting an official Western release? Yeah, with the exception of that type of obsessive hatred, these games will completely slip under the radar of the censor-happy mainstream. Only those of us who actually like this stuff in the first place will actually see it for the most part, because we're going to be the only ones seeking it out. Kind of like the market already exists for those pornographic video games. I mean, sure, we will have the occasional moral panic when some soccer mom finds out that something like Rayplay exists, but after a few days, they just move on to the next moral panic and nothing changes. So the more Asian developers that just bypass the Western industry entirely, the better off we all are in this internet age, in this post-region locking world. And on a final note, I would actually rather they do not open up their own Western branches to handle localization. Just stay in your own countries and do it all from there. I suggest you open up websites in other languages so you can communicate directly with the fans, but please don't open up an office in these other countries. For an example as to why you shouldn't do that, look at Nintendo of America. That is basically just the Western branch of Nintendo, the Japanese company. And look at what a cancer they are when it comes to what they choose to censor or even release in the first place. I'm still more than just a little bit bitter that something like Operation Rainfall had to happen in the first place. But hey, when it comes down to basic economics, this is a lesson that all developers and publishers of niche titles especially will learn eventually. Either the hard way or the easy way. Don't become the next SJW Marvel. Learn the easy way. That way, at least you avoid all the massive cleanup afterwards. And especially when you look at it this way. Think of all the trust you lose by kicking your loyal audience to the curb in order to try to appeal to a different one. The trust you lose by doing that is extremely hard, if not completely impossible, to get back. Think of it this way. You're a guy who has a pretty awesome girlfriend, you have a pretty nice relationship, no problems whatsoever, you're both happy. Then all of a sudden, some better-looking, richer guy starts showing some interest in her, so she just dumps your ass on the spot and says, yeah, I'm going for this guy now, he has more of the stuff I want. I don't need you anymore. And then shortly after that, she finds out that she was just being used by him, and then she tries to come back to you and get you to take her back. Would you do it? After how easily she just dumped you, would you actually take her back? Same thing the other way too, if you're a girl and a guy did that to you, the second some girl that he found more attractive showed some interest in him, he just dumped you because he doesn't need you anymore, and then comes crying back to you because she was only using him for money or something? Would you actually take him back? After how he treated you, would you actually do it? That's kind of the situation these companies are going to find themselves in. If they treat their loyal fans who just want an opportunity to throw more money at them like crap, in some cases flat out telling them they don't want them as customers anymore because now they're appealing to this more progressive customer base, do you really think these customers would accept any of your apologies? Nothing short of completely replacing all of your administrative staff is going to cut it. So again, you want to avoid all that drama? Learn the easy way instead of the hard way. And that's all I got to say, guys. Thanks for listening.